And that was only going to be there for a few years. Well, guess what? 25 years later, we were still there, and nothing much had actually changed. But in the meantime, the game had gone massively professional, the whole focus on sports sciences. We'd grown out of Jolimont Terrace, so therefore our offices had moved, the administration offices had moved to the MCG, but we still had part of our offices down at the Junction Oval. We'd had nowhere to sort of socialise. Our relationship with the MCG was being diluted. So there was a whole lot of areas which the club basically were in competition with other clubs. We were behind, and we were behind just about in every way. So the critical elements in regard to how we look at it going forward, we're quite clearly focused on how do we practically overcome this issue to give ourselves the chance of matching the expertise that we'd brought into the club with these outstanding coaches and sports science people, but we're giving them a facility and therefore almost an attitude in some ways where they were never able to get the best out of the group. In many ways, they would say themselves that facilities are never an excuse, but we understand the reality of the compromises to the programs that we had to make just simply to do what is expected of a modern club. The players had to get in the cars and go swimming at a separate venue. Well, that might have taken another 20, 30, 40 minutes out of their day just to get in the car and go up to MSAC to do their swimming. So all of that compromises the program. But there are other things which go in behind it as well, and one of the critical elements is this notion of identity as well. Before the club was going to do anything in regard to establishing itself and what it needed to do at a facility level, we wanted to re-establish our sense of place at the MCG. And so therefore that's where what was very important was the realignment with the Melbourne Cricket Club. And so we now actively work with the Melbourne Cricket Club as an aligned part of that to give ourselves that sense of place at the MCG where we're more than just a tenant. We are actually part of the fabric of that club, which clearly we are. We've been playing there since 1858. It's been such a big part, and we're all the one club. But re-establishing our identity in it, and that's where we're going to work very, very closely with these guys who are very, very supportive of the work that we're trying to do, and they get it and understand it, and know that becomes the critical component for us then to do other things that we need to do to ensure we're not compromising on these other areas. We then need to also look at, as part of that, how, once we've established the identity, is then looking at the revenue models. And the revenue models, for us, relates very much to the MCG, but also looking at other opportunities, e.g. Darwin. But we can look at Darwin now, and we had a great time there this year, and it was very, very positive at a whole lot of levels. We were able to do that without compromising identity, because people know that we're an MCG club again, and they have a sense of it, and people know why we're trying to go to Darwin, to build our club, to create a sense of community, to have an authentic relationship with players who have come from that area. Really powerful messages that we can actually establish, but also we can generate more revenue than they had the game of being played at the MCG, and I think people get that. And there's always opportunities being looked at that, but with this as a basis, we're in a very strong position. And that's going to be a real challenge for our club, because our profit model relies so heavily on what we do on a match day basis. And the good thing, once again, is we've got strong support from the MCC as to how we build and create that. The next phase is obviously then where we administer our club, and how we actually go about doing what we need to do from that point of view. Again, with a sense of identity, but we've also got to create a great workplace. We've had a difficult and challenging workplace. The MCG is not perfect from that point of view for us, but at least it gives us that strong sense of identity, and it is workable. But our guys at the Junction Oval have had a very poor workplace at a whole lot of levels. But it's also meant that the people who live day to day in the organisation, there's been this enormous fragmentation. That there's, we could put photos up of people who worked at the MCG and put it in front of people that worked at the Junction Oval, and they wouldn't be able to identify them, let alone have any idea or respect for the role that they were playing within the organisation. So we've worked really hard to overcome that at a lot of levels. It's my phone telling me I've got to go to another meeting, but we've worked really hard to overcome that, and we've done that in lots of ways. But now we've got the realistic chance of putting it together. And the final one is obviously this, and that is how we develop and prepare our athletes. So we now know, and the interesting thing, just even the feedback, having had one day out of operating here at AAMI Park, is our players are saying they feel now that there are no excuses in that sense. You know, that they know that there's still a little bit of, it feels a bit unfamiliar at the moment, and they, you know, Brent Maloney said it was a little bit like you're coming into the Institute of Sport as a visit rather than your place, and until it really sort of sinks in for them, I think we'll get, you know, take a little bit of time to get the real advantage. But just even the fact that he's thinking that this feels like the Australian Institute of Sport is a really positive reflection on how people actually see this move into this stadium. So here we are, and it's we've gone from 1985, you know, down to 2010, and I think for the first time in a long time we can go, let's tick. You know, this is tick and a little bit of work in progress. Still got to do some work here. Yeah, big tick and a big tick, and Melbourne Footy Club's on the way. So thanks very much for listening. It's a terrific time for the Melbourne Footy Club. Thanks a lot.